All right, guys, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your time to visit this construction training. We've been having issues lately with a lot of construction training, or I'm sorry, construction types. And I was hoping that our new training that we're doing with the new hires online will help will help some of the older guys out figuring out what we should be doing. We're going to go over the few of the standard images that I'm sure you're used to seeing. We're going to go over what we call the equation, and then we're going to focus on how what we're actually looking for at these, and then a few tips and tricks that we've picked up over time. So these first two, these should be very easy, very obvious to you. One of the things that I do want to discuss, and the reason that these are, you can view the inside on these images, is that determining construction is determining the wall supports and the roof supports. It's not the wall covering and it's not the roof covering that dictates what that construction is. So whenever we're out there and we're talking to insureds and we're looking at buildings, we need to be looking and asking for the wall supports and the roof supports. And that's exactly how you can ask it to an insured. You can say, look, do you know if these walls are just wood frame, or do you know if there's steel or concrete block in them? And then on the roof, you can say, do you know if the roof is wood or steel supports by any chance? You never know who's done a renovation. You never know who's lifted up a tile. A lot of times they may not have any clue, but the ones that will give you that little bit of clue will be a big help. So on the first one on the left here, this one should be pretty straightforward, pretty obvious to everybody. You have wood wall supports and wood roof supports. The other word for wood is frame. That's what we use. So the first one is just going to be wood frame. That's frame wall, frame roof, gives us frame construction. Quick little tip on these. If you see a shingle roof that is almost exclusively over wood joists in the roof, by the way, wood frame and joists, that's all the same. You'll hear me use those interchangeably. And you can also look at the steep of the pitch. Typically with steel buildings, the pitch is a little bit lower versus wood frame. They tend to go closer to a 45-degree angle on their cuts, which makes it more of an A-frame, so to speak. Now, the one on the right, we're looking at this. This has structural steel walls and structural steel roof supports. The other terminology we use for steel is non-combustible. So you have a non-combustible wall support, a non-combustible roof support, that gives you a non-combustible building. Again, regardless of what the wrap of the building is, what the roof covering of the building is, we want the wall support and the roof support. Okay. Now, these two are some of the most difficult ones to figure out. Once you get into these masonry constructions, it can be challenging. But again, we're going to go through a few little things here and we're going to break it out. So both of these constructions right here are going to have concrete block walls or solid brick or solid stone. Remember, brick veneer and stone veneer do not count as supports. We want to know what is actually supporting that wall. So in this case, we have two concrete block buildings. The one on the left, you can see to the inside, it's got the wood roof joists. It's also got a shingle roof on it, which is indicative of wood roof joists. So we combine masonry walls plus wood joists for the roof, and that gives us joisted masonry. Okay, and now on the right, we again have these masonry walls, but now we've got these steel roof supports. And the other terminology we use for steel, which we just covered, is non-combustible. So you have masonry walls plus non-combustible roof supports, and that's going to give us masonry non-combustible. This new method of thinking has really helped with a lot of the new trainees that we have. We've been using this, and we call it the formula, where it is the wall supports plus the roof supports gives us the construction. We want you to determine one, determine the other, and then what do they combine to give you. We don't want people thinking about them as a whole picture anymore. I want wall supports, roof supports, and then what do those add up to? So in this example right here, they're showing you that they have the wall supports are obviously wood frame. So we know that the wall supports are frame. It looks like the roof supports are frame as well, or joists. So wood, frame, joist, that's all the same terminology. But what that gives you is frame plus frame equals frame construction. Okay. Now, on this one, we have concrete block walls. The other word for concrete block is going to be masonry. Okay. Again, we have wood roof supports, wood joists is what they're called. So we take and we have masonry plus joists, and that's going to give us joisted masonry. Okay. Hopefully that's clear. Hopefully this is starting to paint a real picture for you. All right, now again, using the same images to keep this concise, you have masonry walls again here, But now we have steel roof supports, and the other word for steel is going to be non-combustible. So we have masonry plus non-combustible, which is going to give us masonry non-combustible. Okay. Now in this image right here, this one's a little bit tricky. You can see that we have metal wrap around the building, but that is irrelevant. So we have steel supports in the walls, and then we have steel supports for the roof. The other terminology we use for steel is going to be non-combustible. So we're going to have non-combustible walls, non-combustible roof, which is going to give us non-combustible construction. Okay, and now I wanted to give you a little bit of a real-world application with some of these, and this has also been extremely helpful. So this building is 110 years old, and it's in a downtown area. The picture all the way to the right is an aerial view of the roof itself. As an inspector, you should walk up to this and you should say, okay, I know it is 110 based on my interview with the insured. Given that it's that old, that brick is most likely going to be a solid brick, which is going to make this a masonry construction. Okay, and given that it's that old, there's most likely going to be wood roof supports in there, which would be joists. So we would have a joisted masonry. Now, looking at the satellite image, you can see that they have a bunch of HVAC units up there. Typically with that, that's going to trigger us to think that they're going to be steel roof supports just for load-bearing purposes. But upon closer inspection, you can see that all of them are lined around the edge of the roof, which is going to be the strongest part of the strongest support zones. So again, we have solid brick, which is going to be masonry, and then we have wood joists on the roof given its age, and that's going to give us joisted masonry. Okay, and we're going to do this with a couple. So now showing up, looking at this one right here, I can see masonry walls. So obviously I know this is going to be some sort of masonry construction. In the right-hand picture, you can actually see the standing seams on the steel roof. We know that steel roofs typically go over steel supports. That's not 100%, but that's a good way to look at it. So now I know I've got masonry, I've got a steel roof, which is making me think steel supports. So I turn around and I look at the pitch of the building, and the picture's on the left. Okay, now it's a lower pitch. Typically, we don't do low pitches like that with frame joists or wood joists. So I go, okay, we know that we've got masonry walls. Now I truly believe that I have non-combustible or steel roof supports. So that's going to give us masonry non-combustible. Okay. Now on this one, I'm looking at it. It looks like it's just got kind of some vinyl siding. Looks like there's really nothing special to it. It has similarities of a home. Typically homes are built out of wood frame. I know it's a little hard to tell. It does have a shingle roof on here. So I know that I have wood roof joists just because I have that shingle roof. The structure itself looks like it's going to be frame as well. So I'm going to go with frame on this one. All right, and hopefully that kind of makes sense. This one, nobody really misses this one in training. It's usually one of the quicker grabs. All right, and then this one right here, you've got all four pictures. You can see all four sides. It is a little bit trickier. Looking at its condition, I would naturally want to lean towards a frame construction. However, looking at it a little bit more deeply, you've got a steel roof on it. You can kind of see the rivets in the top right photo. You have steel wall wrapped around it. Typically, we're going to put steel over steel. And so this one is actually going to be non-combustible construction. This is one that I would talk heavily with the insured. I would try and pick as much information as I could out of them because this could as easily be frame as it could be non-combustible. If this building had been wrapped in, say, tin instead of the steel, I would have really just leapt straight into frame. Typically, you see that tin over frame. So these are good things, but again, you need to make sure that you're always asking, you're always picking their brain to figure out what little bits of information they know that you can add to your equation and you can expand upon. Now, so those are the primary four that we deal with. There are two additional types of construction that we see rarely. You've got a semi-fire resistive and then a fire resistive. These are mostly concrete buildings. Semi-fire resistive can be a non-combustible structure that has like a fire retardant spray on the inside. That's always an option as well. And fire resistive is essentially just concrete construction. Parking garages are great examples. You can see it's concrete wall supports, wall coverings, and roof supports on that.